Time. Okay, we're live after some amazing computer pratfalls. I believe we can do the top 10 at 10. I'm your host, Dan Wright, writer of FireDogLake.com. Today is June the 19th, 2014. And let's try. Wall Street Journal, U.S. signals Maliki should go. Oh, I don't know what's going on with the text here, but let's just. The Obama administration is signaling that it wants a new government in Iraq without Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, convinced the Shiite leader is unable to reconcile with the nation's Sunni Sunni minority, and stabilize a volatile political landscape. The U.S. administration is indicating it wants Iraq's political parties to form a new government without Mr. Maliki as he tries to reassemble a ruling coalition following elections. So now the U.S., after installing Maliki, wants to take him out because they don't want to get involved. I think if there's any case for U.S. imperialism being a disaster, not some professional enterprise with very serious people, it's Iraq. This is an absolute disaster, and every time we step in, we actually inflame the situation, actually make it worse. So now we're asking our own guy that we installed to leave, who, by the way, was elected, at least in the elections as they happened in Iraq. So now we're asking the democratically elected leader to step down? You gotta be kidding. Story number 9. Oh boy. This is from Al Jazeera. The text is still there. Okay. Battle rages for Iraq's largest oil refinery. Iraqi forces fight Sunni rebels for control of the Baji oil refinery as Baghdad waits on U.S. response for airstrikes. You might remember that this actual fight, the Iraqi army did have air support, it had helicopters, and it was still defeated, or at least pushed back. Iraqi forces are battling Sunni rebels for control of the country's largest oil refinery as the government waits on a U.S. response for air attacks to beat back a rebel advance threatening Baghdad. Troops loyal to the Shia-led government on Thursday were holding off rebels and fighters from the Islamic State in Iraq and Levant, ISIS, at the sprawling Baji oil refinery, some 200 kilometers north of the capital. A government spokesman said earlier on Thursday that Iraqi forces were in, quote, complete control. But a witness said fighting was continuing. The refinery was shut down on Tuesday after rebels launched the attack. World oil markets can't be loving that. Story number 8 from ProPublica. All things Hillary Clinton's book doesn't say about Iraq. In Hard Choices, the former Secretary of State ignores or glosses over key aspects of her record in Iraq, including State Department responsibility for the country's security assistance. Having co-authored a 2007 biography of Hillary Clinton, I know that Iraq is not one of her favorite subjects, but with the bloodshed and sectarian division now crippling Iraq, I wondered what her new memoir, Hard Choices, had to say about a country that's long been a political minefield for her. The answer is not a lot. There is no chapter on its own for Iraq like there is for Gaza or Burma or Haiti. The discussion of Iraq is scattered throughout the 632-page book and is mostly about old battles. Clinton does not delve into the challenges she faced as Secretary of State in 2011 as her department inherited responsibility for Iraq's security assistance when American troops withdrew. Instead, the book has made headlines for her admission for the first time in 12 years that she made a mistake when voting to authorize the Iraq War when she was still a senator in 2002. A closer look at what Clinton wrote and didn't write about that vote, about her views on the Iraq troop surge, and about the country's ongoing sectarian strife is revealing. Clinton continues to misstate parts of her record on Iraq while failing to address some of the tough choices she took as America's chief diplomat. Story number 7. The Turning Point, New Hope for the Climate. This is from Al Gore in Rolling Stone. It's time to accelerate the shift toward a low-carbon future in the struggle to solve the climate crisis. A powerful, largely unnoticed shift is taking place. The forward journey for human civilization will be difficult and dangerous, but it is now clear that we will ultimately prevail. It is? The only question is how quickly we can accelerate and complete the transition to a low-carbon civilization. There will be many times in the decade ahead when we will have to take care to guard against despair, lest it become another form of denial, paralyzing action. It is true that we have waited too long to avoid some serious damage to the planetary ecosystem, some of it unfortunately irreversible. Yet the truly catastrophic damages that have the potential for ending civilization as we know it can still almost certainly be avoided. Moreover, the pace of changes already set in motion can be moderated significantly. There is surprising, even shocking good news. Our ability to convert sunshine into usable energy has become more cheaper far more rapidly than anyone had predicted. The cost of electricity from photovoltaic or PV solar cells is now equal to or less than the cost of electricity from other sources powering electric grids in at least 79 countries. By 2020, as the scale of deployment grows and the costs continue to decline, more than 80% of the world's people will live in regions where solar will be competitive with electricity from other sources. No matter what the large carbon polluters and their ideological allies say or do, in markets there is a huge difference between more expensive than and cheaper than, not unlike the differences between 32 degrees and 33 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not just a difference of degree, it's a difference between a market that's frozen up and one that's liquid. As a result, all over the world, the executives and companies selling electricity, okay, so he thinks there's a lot of possibilities in solar cells. He's also, by the way, an investor in a lot of these companies, so we'll take it, we'll leave it there. Story number 6. From Truth Out, water privatization coming to a century-old system near you. This one got crapified. Let me see. Maybe I just try to make it better. Okay, good. The good news is that more than a century-old our more than a century-old dangerously deteriorating water wastewater systems are about to get long overdue attention. Not only did Congress give the Water Resources Reform and Development Act of 2004 House and Senate, but on June 10th, President Obama signed it. WRRDA is bringing joy to the financial industry, construction unions, environmentalists, legislators, the transportation industry, and almost anyone or thing connected with water. The only thing that seems to be missing is holding hands to sing Kumbaya. But while WRRDA has many long-needed features, the reality is that some parts of the law are seriously problematic. If you haven't heard, that doesn't mean that it's not a big deal. The law's Title I reforms existing problematic water programs. Title II covers navigation and navigatable waters. Title III concerns programs related to the extreme weather events. Title IV addresses navigable rivers, rural, western, and coastal areas. And Title V provides public financing for privatized water projects. Is likely to be the most controversial. There's money to privatize water systems. And the story over Truth Out goes through that. Story number 5. Load that again. Something's going on here. Politico's Mike Allen, Bloomberg's Mark Halperin participate in an event for Republican donors. Last week's summit of top Republican donors convened by Mitt Romney in Park City, Utah, was a frustrating event for reporters. Though 5 potential Republican presidential candidates made the scene, media access was uneven. Some big shots spoke to reporters, but others didn't, and panel discussions were not only off the record, but closed altogether to reporter types. Those journalists who did show up had to scramble for crumbs in the hallways, except for the last 2. Mike Allen of Politico and Mark Halperin of Bloomberg served as participants in the confab of Republican giants, chatting as panelists in a session with Republican strategist Karl Rove. Through an event schedule is either non-existent or scarce, knowledgeable source confirms the setup, and neither Allen nor Bloomberg denies it. Other media folks weren't allowed to attend the discussion. Rove knows off the record it was just such a non-media session that he allegedly made controversial remarks about the health of Hillary Rodham Clinton. Panelists' work afforded Allen and Halperin insider status at the Romney event. They were allowed to attend all the various sessions, provided that they respected the off-the-record stipulation, according to the source. In many cases, other reporters didn't get to attend them, even if they agreed to the dubious off-the-record conditions. Speeches by 4 of the 5 2016 possible Republican hopefuls were off limits to regular old reporters. Ground rules didn't prevent Allen from putting the event at the top of the Saturday edition of the popular Politico playbook. He noted the event was staged by Solomir Capital, an investment firm founded by Tag Romney. He put this plug at the top of the playbook, Romney Nostalgia Weekend. So I guess the writer here is taking issue with these reporters being involved in this, which is off the record and special stipulations, and we're going to sponsor this, and there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of incestuous aspects to the DC press, which is one of the reasons you really shouldn't believe most of what they say. Besides the fact that it's poorly written most times. North Dakota producing 1 million barrels of oil per day. This is story number 4. Good Lord. Okay. That's just a fun fact. I don't know how I got. North Dakota's oil boom is rendering upwards of 1 million barrels of oil per day, a rate achieved by only 4 other states and 19 countries. North Dakota's Department of Mineral Resources on June 17 reported the state has produced more than 1 million barrels of oil per day since April, up from 977,000 barrels a day in March. North Dakota's oil fields, led by Bakken Shale Formation, account for about 12% of U.S. oil production. Jeez. Texas, California, Alaska, and Louisiana are the only other U.S. states that have produced more than 1 million barrels of oil per day. 1 Canadian province and 19 countries have produced at that rate. So North Dakota is going through sort of a massive oil boom. Still not good enough to even live there. Story number 3. See about this one. Here you go. This is about polarization. So growing ideological consistency. This is from Pew Center for People in the Press. A decade ago, the public was less ideologically consistent than it is today. In 2004, only about 1 in 10 Americans were uniformly liberal or conservative across most values. Today, the share who are ideologically consistent has doubled. 21% express either consistently liberal or conservative opinions. The new survey finds that as ideological consistency has become more common, it has become increasingly aligned with partisanship. Looking at 10 political value questions tracked since 94, more Democrats now give uniformly liberal responses, and more Republicans give uniformly conservative responses than at any point in the last 20 years. The breaking of the nation. Story number 2. This is from National Journal. I'm right and everybody else is wrong. Clear about that? Bernie Sanders will likely represent the hardline left in 2016. Will he help or hurt the movement? So this is sort of a story on Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist independent from the state of Vermont. He is a U.S. senator. This is sort of this typical sort of in media res. Well, we'll do a little. Okay, there is a little analysis in here. If Sanders runs, he will do so as the candidate of the Democratic Party's uncompromising left flank. Despite the fact that he's an independent, Sanders has suggested he would run in Democratic primaries, not on a third-party ticket, promising that he doesn't want to play the spoiler. More so than any point in the recent memory, this segment of the electorate, while admittedly still small, seems to have the wind at its back. Thanks to the Occupy movement of 2011, the subject of economic inequality is now at the forefront of American politics. Last year, left-wing mayoral candidates won surprising victories in Boston and New York, where Bill de Blasio spun his progressive populism into a wildly effective electoral strategy. On the cultural front, several left-wing publications, and Plus One, the New Inquiry, Jacobin, have gained increasing prominence among a base of younger readers hostile to neoliberal economics. They've been joined by a much larger audience, propelling the Thomas Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century, which advocates radical wealth distribution, to the top spot on Amazon's bestseller list. So this is a good breakdown. Maybe Bernie Sanders. Maybe that's the candidate. I guess he's running in the Democratic primary. And the number 1 story from yours truly, Fire Dog Lake. Dare I try to reload this? Okay. Obama claims he does not need congressional approval for the next Iraq war. President Obama, who won the Democratic primaries and general election in 2008, thanks in large part to his opposition to the 2003 Iraq war, has now told Congress he can launch another war in Iraq without Congress's approval. Instead, Congress would simply be briefed on what was happening, not ask for authority. Those who were hoping for change from the imperial presidency are out of luck. The culprit for the latest round of possible unregulated aggression appears to be the authorization for use of military force against terrorists of 2001 Act, which, according to House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, justifies pretty much any action Obama may deem necessary. Talk about a blank check. House Democratic Nancy Pelosi agreed with McConnell's assessment, issuing congressional authorization for military force in Iraq back in 2001, 2003 still applied. Still applies in 2014 after he pulled all the troops out. So in other words, Obama did not end the Iraq War because technically it never ended, and we can go back at any time. Back in any time. Isn't that wonderful? Not that the bloodthirsty Republicans and venal Democrats in Congress would not authorize another Iraq adventure, but they should at least be forced to publicly do so with a vote, not rely on a decade-old post-9/11 bill passed while hyperventilating. There has never been a better time to roll back the imperial presidency after decades of gruesome and costly failures, but it appears Obama is doubling down rather than rolling back executive authority and in the process setting up even more perilous precedents for a successor. We're going to be in Iraq forever, and we can go back anytime we want. We don't need a vote. Hope and change, people. Hope and change. And that is the top 10 of 10. If you have a story you'd like me to feature on the top 10 of 10, please tweet me at DanSWright. Be sure to read all the stories at firedoglake.com. Thanks for watching.